Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sorting Hat Podcast, the show where I'm going to reset. I can't words. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Sorting Hat Podcast, the show where everything and anything can and will be sorted. I, as always, am your host, Michael Barryte, joined by my co-host, Brice.
Dude, you need to take a breath some of these times.
Some of these times, yeah.
Holy shit, that was all in one breath.
Yeah, dude. But anyway, we're jumping into part 2 of Plant Families. I'm really excited to just like dive back in. We have our guest, Nina Vuoso,
What's up?
back with us. We say back as if you left.
I literally have not moved from this chair, but it's all good.
Yeah.
This came out a week later or whatever.
Yeah, our audience went and did other stuff.
Yes, you guys did other stuff. We stayed here. We were locked in space and time, but we're back
We
now.
don't exist unless you're listening to us.
It's true. And we're now going to be tackling nightshades, asters, grasses, peas, and spinaches. We're going to be sorting them all. We've previously sorted brassicas, cucurbits, roses, and mints. So if you haven't listened to part 1 to find out how those have been sorted and just learn some awesome stuff, because Nina Vuoso is an exceptional naturalist and outdoor science teacher, so you can get a little more on her background.
But you'll
in
also learn that Michael
episode.
is sexually attracted to Carmen Sandiego. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Sure. So do we want to dive straight in, or do we want to talk just a little more on like what we were talking about off mic of just like
Yeah.
culture food relations?
Yeah,
Because we
yeah.
can do that.
Yeah. So like I was just mentioning that like for me and my family, like my dad's Italian, my grandfather was an immigrant from Italy, and then my nana was raised by Italian immigrants, but in like the Italian neighborhood in Manhattan in the 1920s. And so for me, like yeah, as an Italian, and we think like quintessentially about like Italian food as being like a really particular like food type. I feel really connected to like my culture through food and through like the, processing food. And like I grow my basil plant like on my windowsill, and I go and I clip my couple leaves of basil while I'm cooking my pasta or whatever. And I think a lot about how the people that I am related to ancestrally have done that for so long.
Right.
Yeah.
And basil would be in the mint family.
Basil's in the mint family. We're gonna get into tomatoes next-ish.
It's in some ways kind of weird and vulnerable for me because I don't have like a strong connection to my immediate family. I don't even know what my entire ethnic background is. Like, it's some white trash.
You
but,
should
like,
do
that's
some Ancestry.com stuff.
Oh, God.
Or not, because like
I don't need to be told that I'm white when you can just look at me.
But you might find out there's like a unique aspect to your heritage that you were unaware of.
I feel like, yeah, but like as far as foods go, like none there aren't any foods that are like culturally, like, like this is like something our family's done forever. Like nobody in my family really cooks too much. Like I have like one aunt. So I don't have any foods like myself. Like when I was growing up, like whenever I needed to be comforted or if I wanted to celebrate, I'm from Riverside County in California. So like Mexican food is really big there. So Mexican food is what I consider my comfort food. It's my childhood food. And I honestly, sorry guys, you can't get very good food outside of Southern California, Texas, or Mexico. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know there are going to be people who are going to come for me. Go ahead. Come for me.
We had mentioned also off pod because we were like transitioning around that the avocado we were talking about.
Oh yeah. So
I didn't even know that like most people haven't even eaten avocados if they're not from here.
Right. And so like I think that like exactly what you're saying right now is like, well, I don't really have connection via like my direct family lineage to a particular food culture, but there is a really distinctive food culture here in Southern California, and it all just it's regional, right? Like people have been coming and going in different regions for such a long time, picking up a spice here or there, or picking up a type of food, right? Like there's this whole mythology about Marco Polo going to China and then coming back and bringing the shape of spaghetti because noodles, right? So we've been sharing, and that's what culture is all about, is like this kind of like this sharing thing. And so like I identify really strongly with you about the Southern California food culture in particular, right? Like this Chicano food culture. And yeah, like I was in Vermont this summer, and I watched somebody who is, an adult, and I watched her take her first bite of avocado ever. And that was mind blowing to me, but that's because Maine doesn't grow avocados, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So my mom, who's from Massachusetts, had never encountered an avocado until she moved out here for grad school. At which point, I think her first interaction, if I'm remembering the story correctly, was with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
He had mentioned avocados, and my mom, like, as a nice gesture, was like, I'm going to make him a meal with avocados. And she had no idea how to peel the thing.
Whoa,
So-
that's great.
So she was trying to peel it, like,
Oh,
with
what
a
a mess.
peeler, because she just had no idea.
How would you know unless you watch somebody do it? Because
Right.
it's a very weird food.
Even
Let's be
regular
real.
avocado users sometimes struggle getting that pit out.
Well, if
So-
it's not perfectly ripe, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
So there's just like this odd image of my mom doing that, and just on like the family heritage sort of things. Like for me, it's actually like there's mostly meat-based dishes are the ones that immediately are attached to like comfort for me. My Aunt Gloria's stuffed cabbage is one that I only
stuffed
have.
with meat.
Yeah. Stuffed
Oh,
with like
what?
They typically are, yeah.
yeah, it's like beef and it's really good and it's like soaked and seasoned. And then my grandmother had a brisket recipe that my mother has since been able to replicate, and God bless her. I can have other people's brisket, and like that other brisket is fine, but it's very, very different from what actual traditional brisket is. It actually has like more of a watery broth to it, and it's like carrots and onions around
It's almost like a stew.
as opposed to like the like chunky like tomato sauce that sometimes goes across on
Like
some brisket,
like braised brisket.
yeah. And then also my mother does like this teriyaki chicken that is like seasoned just to perfection, and I always have the brisket and the teriyaki chicken as like a Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, or like Passover-y sort of thing. So good. Anyway.
Yeah.
Did you just have it? Because we just had Yom Kippur, right? Recently?
No, Rosh Hashanah just happened.
Yeah, Rosh Hashanah just happened.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
And side note, I'm being a bad Jew, and Yom Kippur is today.
Happy Yom Kippur.
I ate
Isn't
today.
that the Day of Atonement?
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want
man.
to atone for either of us?
I mean, I want to atone for not being at Yom Kippur for my parents
Oh,
right
that's
now.
not about me.
No, I'm sorry.
And also talking all about food and making you really hungry on the
Oh,
day
shit,
that you're
I'm
not
sorry,
supposed
dude.
to eat
Yeah,
anything.
no, it's totally fine.
Should we start sorting some plants?
Yes,
Yeah,
let's
let's get
start.
back
Let's
into
dive
some
into our nightshades.
Oh, nightshades. Okay, well, we were just talking about the tomatoes, kind of. So Solanaceae, nightshades. These are our tomatoes, peppers, eggplants. Are all in the same family, which is so weird because they all seem so different. But again, we're not looking at the differences; we're looking at these similarities. These are all very similar plants because all three of those culinarily that we eat are the fruits of them, right? The part of the plant that has the seeds in it starts out as a flower. These are plants that originated on this continent and need just a tremendous amount of sunlight in order to grow. They're really heavy feeders. You need to fertilize them a lot. We think about, burying fish in with our plants. Like this is one that we would need to do that with, just tons of nitrogen. And this plant family is super fucking poisonous. Like,
Yeah.
like the tomato plant itself.
Oh, like so if you ate the stem of a tomato
If you
plant,
ate the leaves of it, like
even the leaves.
yeah, like it's gonna fuck you up. Like gonna give you a stomach ache. Like
I know that eggplant is like a very the fruit itself on eggplant is kind of poisonous, right?
Yeah, it's very bitter a lot of times, and so like something that I know a lot of people do is what's called sweat your eggplant, and so you like put salt on it first to draw out some of those
toxins.
Yeah, I hesitate to use the word toxin,
Okay.
but we are
Because
we are talking about really really bitter tasting compounds, and the whole reason why we can taste bitter is so that we can know whether or not something is going to make us sick, and our tolerance, like as human beings, like this is an adaptation that we have. Our tolerance for bitter things is insanely sensitive, right? Like you have this minimum amount of like the compound. Okay, so there. Where this research comes from is like food scientists and nutrition scientists and physiologists who are looking at like the physiology of taste buds. And so you can imagine that you have these different concentrations of different compounds. So you have like a glass of lemonade, right? And that has a certain concentration of sugar in it. You add more sugar, it's going to be sweeter. It's going to be a higher concentration. So there's this test that people have done with different levels, different concentrations of these different flavor compounds and why that would be. So for sugar, we actually need quite a lot of sugar in order to be able to taste it. And we can think about why that would be because, like our sugar is a big like food source. And so your body wants to eat a lot of it because it's going to provide you a lot of energy. So like here, your tolerance for it is really high so that you make sure that you consume a lot. But for bitter things, because a lot of stuff that's bad for us is super bitter, or can make us sick is super bitter, our like sensitivity to it, our threshold is so low, like orders of magnitude, like hundreds of thousands to millions of times lower than say for salt or for sugar, and especially for people who carry babies and like are responsible for growing babies. So if you become
pregnant, your sensitivity to bitterness actually
like skyrockets.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So just
because you don't want to put something in your breast milk that could then potentially hurt your baby.
So physiologically, your body just like ups the palate game a little bit.
From a history standpoint, at least in terms of what it means to Western civilization, this is one of the most important plant families to history.
Yes.
Because
potatoes. I forgot about potatoes are in this family. Yeah,
potatoes and tomatoes. We both think is like ubiquitous to like a lot of like European, because we're just going to talk about like American European imperialism and colonization. In the old world, when the potato was introduced, it caused a quarter of the growth of the old world around, like, because it was like we didn't even have these foods have been eaten by people since like I think the tomato, it said like 500 BC. We didn't start eating tomatoes in Europe until like the 1500s.
Right, because colonization and because actually going to visit this continent.
Yeah, and we didn't have potatoes until like the 15th century. And like I said, it caused one of the biggest population booms we experienced
in the old world. A lot of that has to do with, as far as like base level sustenance goes, like a potato is an incredible just like bomb of energy.
Yeah, I mean meat and potatoes, right? And it's like it's pure starch and it stores for so long. When it's cold, man, if you got a potato in your cellar, like it's gonna last for such a long time.
Yeah, and it's not gonna like give you like it's like not the most nutritious thing, but it's got stuff like potassium in it that's like vital to the body to survive.
And I'm really glad that you brought that up. I was going to go there too, because if we think about these like foods that we eat now, like an Italian spaghetti dish or whatever, like eggplant parmesan, right? The eggplants, the tomatoes, that all did not exist in Italian cuisine until it was brought here. Or the burrito, like the burrito is it comes from all over the place.
Absolutely,
yeah.
It's just wild, especially like, and like, maybe this is apocryphal. I heard there's even like some hesitation when it was first introduced because people were dummies and were trying to eat the whole plant.
Yeah. And then they were getting super sick. They were like,
there was an aversion to it, and it took a while for it to like actually catch on. But once it did, the effects that this plant family had on civilization, at least from the white people side of things,
from the
ridiculous.
From a Eurocentric perspective, it was such a huge game changer.
Changed the whole game, baby.
Yeah.
So it contains, it's got a component of it that is poisonous.
Yeah.
At least to some degree.
Yeah.
Super bitter on that side, but then it's got the fruit is the thing that potato is a fruit?
Oh man, potato's a tuber. Potato is this outgrowth on the roots that basically stores a bunch of it stores a lot of energy. So the potato plant itself You can plant potatoes in like a couple different ways. It does technically produce a flower. It does technically produce a seed, but farmers, as far as I know, like do not plant potato seeds. What you do is like, have you ever had a potato too long in your pantry and it starts to grow?
Yeah,
like,
out of its eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, out of its eyes. So they'll cut it and they'll just plant that whole thing, and it'll send out a root, and it'll send out a shoot, and it'll start to photosynthesize, and so the actual like plant will grow out of the ground, and then, you know, photosynthesis happens in the leaves. It sends all those sugars down into the roots, and then it just like has a lot of sugars. So it just kind of like blebs out into this like tuber off of the root. And that happens kind of at these specific junctures in the root, like anatomy. And so you can actually like maximize your potato growth by burying your potato plant, and then your potato plant will be like, wait, I need sunlight, and it'll keep growing more leaves. And then the stem, the part of the stem that is now buried plants are so amazing. Will then turn it'll recycle that spot where the leaves were coming out of, and all of a sudden that will become a place where potatoes can grow. So that juncture where you have like a stem and then you have like a branch coming off of that stem, there's stem cells, literal stem cells, and this is where the whole word stem cell comes from. These like multipotent or pluripotent cells that have the possibility of becoming different types of cells. So it's not just a leaf cell, it's not just a stem cell, or you know, like a cell that's specialized to be part of the stem. It's the cell that then
can go in any direction depending on the situation.
Under different circumstances can then become something else.
That's wild.
Then when a farmer is really looking to grow potatoes, what they're actually like, the way to maximize their potato output would be just to like keep burying the potatoes so they then can go down like multi-levels to get all the potatoes.
It's literally called hilling your potatoes, and the way that the potatoes are planted in the first place in a deeper trench, then you just kind of like fold over the like sides of the beds, and then it starts to grow out, and then you have this little, you know, this little plant, and then you hill your potatoes again, you add more soil, and then you keep doing that process until you have like, you know, potatoes all the way down.
Whoa.
And then you just have lots and lots of potatoes. And once your potatoes start to flower, then it's like, okay, time to harvest them.
That's remarkable.
That's
and
bonkers.
Also so wildly different from any of the other, as far as like tomatoes or eggplant, like, because you can't do that with
Those
eggplant.
are vine vegetables,
Well, yeah,
right?
you very slightly can do that with tomatoes. Like a lot of times when you're transplanting tomatoes, they have kind of a sucky stem. Like they can become very heavy plants. They can produce a lot, and so we think about them, Reed, as like vining them or trellising them so that they're supported, because those tomatoes can just get super heavy. Especially when you think about those like heirloom varieties of tomatoes. You know, you can have a 2-pound tomato just by itself, right? So the stem is really, really weak. So something that farmers will do is, as they're transplanting the tomato, they'll remove the bottom two like branches that are coming off of it, and then you expose that, and then you plant it a little bit deeper in the ground, and that will become more roots. Those first two like stems that you broke off, those first two branches, that will become more roots, and then when you plant it, it's like this thicker part of the stem that's now sitting right above the surface of the soil.
So this stem cell quality is present in other plants. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, all plants have this thing called it's called meristematic tissue. Yeah.
But the meristematic tissue, is that like most commonly attributed to this like nightshade variety?
No,
or
I mean, we can go back to back to last episode, right? We were talking about apples and prunus, you know, is the genus, and the Rosaceae is the family, and you can graft, right?
Grafting is a huge wild world.
It's a huge wild world. If you're not familiar with grafting, it's when you can take basically a plant, a tree, you start to grow the tree, and then you cut like a part of that tree, and then you can like basically transplant on a branch or the entire top of a tree onto a different root stock.
So you can have like an apple pear tree or an apple peach tree.
Or you can have, I've seen ones that are like, it's like 5 different stone fruit varieties on the same rootstock. And a lot of times, orchards, when you're driving up and down the 5 and you're looking at these really big orchards, they'll have a completely different rootstock. They'll have like an almond rootstock or whatever. And apricot tree on it, because the almond rootstock maybe is best and has been selected for being really sturdy in wind conditions or whatever. They absorb nutrients really, really well. And then, you obviously want that delicious fruit. Mm-hmm. So
I'm getting grafted.
You're getting grafted?
In December, I'm having my top surgery. Yeah, thank you. And what it involves is they actually have to remove my nipples.
Yeah.
Because that's part of it, because they're kind of doing they're doing a trim and tuck sort of thing. And then what they're going to do is they're going to replace them in the place where guys who are assigned male at birth, their nipples are actually in a slightly different place than people who are assigned female at birth. And so they want to give me some dude nips. And so they're actually going to be even trimming down the size of my actual nipples and then putting them on there. And there's actually a risk that my body won't take to the nipple and it'll die on my body.
It could reject it. Yeah.
I am exciting.
You're getting grafted.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm real excited to get grafted.
Yeah.
So, okay. With
Michael sometimes can't, when I overshare, he sometimes just doesn't know what to do with the information. And he's like pushing past your weirdness.
There's no way to transition from that specific back.
Basically, grafting is plant surgery.
That's
plant
crazy.
Transplantation.
So I was incorrect
Dr.
in
Moreau
thinking
of plants.
that this sort of the way that potatoes sort of work is not a quality. I thought that was specific to nightshades, but it's just a plant specific
it's kind of a plant thing, and also the connection between those two, I realized that I made a conceptual leap in my brain but didn't say it out loud, is that the reason why grafting can work is because you're meeting those two bits of multipotent tissues together that allow oh, hey, new apricot branch, you can now go into the almond rootstock because you can just keep producing more cells. Yeah.
Is there anything else we need to know about nightshade before we sort it?
I mean, they're also really spicy, right? So the pepper is super duper spicy.
We haven't talked about peppers.
Hot peppers, man. And we're the only species on Earth that actively seeks out the capsaicin in peppers. That's spicy, that makes us hurt and hot, and
No, humans are just we're masochists.
We're
as
such
a species.
masochists. Yeah.
But we can handle it.
Overall,
because I mean, it could be a cultural thing. I don't, we technically shouldn't.
Yeah, because overall, nightshade is pulling heavy duty hits to try to get people to not eat it. Yeah, it's very much I'm gonna survive this shit, which makes me think it's probably a Slytherin.
I'm feeling really Slytherin about Solanaceae.
Not even but just in terms of Slytherins are the ones in a fight that you got to know they're gonna pull out whatever they need to win.
They're scrappy motherfuckers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing a little bit dirty there.
Yeah,
I feel okay with that. On that regard, then we're moving on to asters.
Yeah. Oh, asters are super fun. So this is one of the. Is it funny because it says ass in it?
I'm so sorry. I'm like this. My brain. Talk about asters.
I met somebody recently whose given name was Aster because her mom was a horticulturalist. I think that's so cute.
I have a friend named Astrid.
Oh, Astrid. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, this is a plant family that is just super diverse. It's everywhere. These are dandelions. This is the sunflower family. And so they have, they can have these super showy flowers of all different varieties. I mean, it's just all kinds of colors. They're compound flowers, which means that they have, when you look at for example, a sunflower, you're not just looking at one flower, you're looking at thousands and thousands of flowers on this head, right? A dandelion is composed of hundreds of flowers on it. So, it's got this compound flower. It has on the seed, if you think of a dandelion seed, sort of this charismatic puff on it. And it's this modified petals. I think they're petals. Anyway, this part on it called pappus. And that's this sort of fluff. And it can take on different characteristics, but it basically, all of these seeds have some kind of like fluff on them. So they can be sort of wind carried.
Gotcha.
If you see pappus, that's an aster. Yeah.
But it's like in a lot of stuff that you don't even think about. Like, it's saying that you can like find it in like cooking oils. You're gonna find it. Let's see here in like herbal teas. Some
echinacea is an aster. Dandelion is an aster.
Lettuce.
Okay, so lettuce is an aster, and this like blew my mind when I first learned it like several years ago. But like, it also blows other people's minds too, because we don't think about the plants that we purchase at the farmer's market or at the store as, you know, being these whole plants that have a whole life cycle. But if you have your lettuce plant, and this is kind of the bane of existence of a lot of farmers, is like when it starts to get hot, these plants will have the tendency to bolt really quick. So they'll like basically be like, oh, it's getting hot. Time for us to like take all our energy that we've stored in our leaves and our roots and send it up and make a bunch of flowers and our seeds, because we're going to die, because it's going to get too hot and we're just going to die.
So it's just like the quick panic of like, guys, fuck. We gotta
fuck flowers.
I really would have like guessed if you're like what two are related, I would put it like with kale and the Brachiosaurus one,
because they're leaves, right? We eat the leaves of it. Yeah, but you look at the flowers of it, and the that brassica flower looks like this cross.
Sorry,
that's okay. I love it.
I said something completely different.
Brachiosaurus.
Oh fuck, that's a dinosaur.
Which is also amazing because dino kale is like a variety. But anyway, yeah, so when the lettuce will flower, it kind of comes up in this like cone, this like spiral. Yeah. And the leaves kind of shrivel up at the bottom, and then it makes these sort of puffballs off the top. And when you collect the seed of lettuce, you have to kind of do a lot of work to get all that fluff off of it.
Is this then also, because I'm just like thinking about the look of it, would Brussels sprouts fall in this?
Brussels sprouts is a brassica.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
okay.
It's basically tiny cabbages on a stalk. Yeah,
I wasn't sure if they were going one or the other.
That's a good question. Yeah. And they also have that like bitter flavor,
that's true.
Right? That mustardy
true.
flavor.
So then with lettuce does have a slightly sweeter flavor than. And I'm assuming if you were to eat dandelions, they'd have some sweetness to them.
You want to know something wild about dandelions?
I would love to.
I've learned is dandelions are actually, again, speaking like I'm American, so I'm only my experiences. Dandelions, you find them everywhere here, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
They are not from here. They were introduced from Europe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're this introduced weed.
Yeah, they brought them over to be eaten, by the way. Mm-hmm. That was their purpose. And now they've kind of just like overtaken so many parts. Like there's not many parts of the country that I've been to anyway that like you don't just see them like as a weed growing up.
They're super, they're really hardy. And you can eat the leaves. A lot of people have to eat dandelion greens as just another green vegetable that you can eat. Dandelion root is a lot of times used as like a tea. Like you can make a tea out of it that I personally really like. And there's like a coffee substitute that is made with like dandelion root, because you can roast it and it's got that sort of roasty flavor.
Sure.
But then also like other thistles, right? So burdock is a lot of times that root. Like I brewed a root beer using burdock roots.
Is root beer root? Is that one of these?
It can be a combination of different types of fruits, but like burdock and dandelion have definitely been used to brew root beer before. And those are the roots in them. And then the other thistles that we actually eat are artichokes, right? Like if you ever see an artichoke go to flower, go a little too far, it's this beautiful purple like puffball flower.
What's the one that you make wishes on?
Those are dandelions.
Oh, are those?
Yeah,
also?
once they're yellow, after they're like this beautiful yellow flower, right? Once the flower kind of does what it's supposed to do, right? Helps attract pollinators so that the pollen can get transferred from plant to plant, and then the seed can develop. Then the petals, those yellow petals, will die back. As the seed develops, that pappus will develop, and it comes out in this sort of globe And then the seeds are then
little white fluffy thing,
dispersed.
and then you blow on. That's why it happened, because they're so damn fun to blow on. Everyone's like, I want to blow on this plant, and then it's like, hell yeah, I'm about to become the most invasive species in this fucking planet.
They're so good at dispersal.
So we can blame their unlimited appeal and our desire to just blow on things as like
people love to blow on stuff. Like, like, if you're a child, you're trying to blow on things. Bubbles, your sister's face.
I mean, it's basically like natural confetti, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like the act of talking is like a burst of air that comes out and is vibrated through these cords in your fucking throat. It's all just blowing on stuff.
Man, you know what? I'm getting so much. I would love to jump into sorting this now, because I have a lot of different ways. It goes in so many different ways, right? Because it's sunflowers and it's artichokes and it's lettuce and it's dandelions. So I'm feeling kind of Gryffindor about it.
I am as well.
Yeah.
But there's the part of me that just is like, is there an element that we're missing or failing to acknowledge? Like there's the part of me that like solely looking at something like a dandelion and also the commonplaceness of it that might make it seem a little more devious in the way that it's spread.
Right.
That might make it err a little towards Slytherin.
Just
I don't know.
damn
it feels
efficient.
pretty straightforward. It's just like, I'm flying around. I'm getting caught on you. I'm just here.
Right. Oh, I mean, and then we can also talk about the seed dispersal with the burrs, right? And burrs are so damn like that gets under your skin, right?
Yeah.
They like stick to you.
Which is a Slytherin move.
What's in my mind
know.
is Aaron Burr is like a total Slytherin and Burrs and whatever, but that's not the connection that we can make.
Hell yeah, dude. So what you're thinking, it might actually be a Slytherin?
I think so.
But just like one of those like smiling Slytherins that like are very kind to you.
I think it's a Slytherin masquerading around as a Gryffindor.
Whoa.
Like who's that lady that everyone hates in Harry Potter?
Umbridge.
Yeah, that lady, is that the one who like
she's like falsely sweet?
Who got like who's like the most fucked up?
Yeah.
Ultimately?
She's making Harry like write out things and it's carving into his arm.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah.
The fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will not tell lies.
That happens in Harry Potter?
Yeah.
He has to write like it 500 times, I will not tell lies, and as he writes it, it like etches into his skin.
She's
that
like
is some saw shit. What is J.K. Rowling? What's wrong with you?
She wanted to ensure that you really hated her.
She's like the definition of lawful evil. Like she's her face is in the box of lawful evil.
Who, J.K. Rowling?
No, Umbridge.
No, Professor Dolores Umbridge is lawful evil.
Yeah, with all
undeniably.
her stupid like educational decrees that she used to just like oppress the students. Like she fucking.
I thought you were coming for J.K. I was like, damn.
Using the law in order to fuck people up.
Oh,
like,
you mean
do you
like
think
cops?
that
Yeah,
Javert also falls into lawful evil, or is he lawful neutral?
I don't know enough to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think he's lawful neutral or lawful evil?
Javert
from Les Mis.
Oh, honey, I don't like that show. You would think that like my little gay ass, who's also a socialist, would be all about this show.
Whether
but
or not,
I only watched the movie though.
Oh, geez.
But I don't like that music. I don't like it.
Really, I think the music's gorgeous. Whether or not you liked Russell Crowe's performance as Javert,
Oh, geez, no, the movie version just doesn't exist for me.
it's not exceptional.
Someone take me to a live version. I'm always willing to give something a try. But but from what I remember, Javert is probably lawful neutral.
Have you had an episode of classic like musicals?
We do. We have one
great.
with Ari Stidham discussing Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, like
how
way
fun.
back when.
That's
older
amazing.
musicals are my favorite though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Les Mis is not from the classical version, the classical era of musicals.
No, it's not from the classical era, but it's I would say.
Are we okay sorting this as Slytherin?
No, so Gryffindor about
I think it's just a more devious Gryffindor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
like-
I mean, we can also agree to disagree, right? Or do we have to?
Yeah, no, we
We
definitely
can
don't.
and will for the sake of
It doesn't
time.
have to be consensus
Okay,
ever.
shit.
Otherwise, Michael would have such a hard time with me, just in life, if we had to agree on everything.
So we're moving on to grasses.
Cool. Grasses are obviously super diverse, right? Like
Mhm.
this Poaceae is the family name, and it just encompasses every type of grass. But they're actually, I'm gonna forget the number, but they're like our staple foods are grasses. We eat them every day.
All the
I want
cereals,
to
right?
I want to make you try to name all of the like grasses that we eat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wheat,
Wheat for sure.
cow grass, so like green grass. We
Just
don't eat it though.
crabgrass.
Okay. What else? Barley?
Yeah, barley.
Hell yeah.
Mhm.
Rice?
Yeah, rice is right. I mean, that's like the how.
Like
I
wheat
wonder
and rice alone.
what percentage of our calories as a global population is rice every day. So much.
Lemongrass.
Is corn?
Maybe. Yes, corn.
Grass?
Mhm.
Corn
Okay.
is a grass?
Corn is a grass.
I was just going off of your like, I bet you'll be surprised at how many. And I was like, well, corn is like the most prevalent.
You know what?
Yeah.
Corn is a grass feels like it's like what have you ever had like an argument with somebody about like are hot dogs a sandwich?
They are not.
They definitely are. I'm sorry.
I mean, meat between two
Agree to
pieces of
disagree.
bread.
It is a piece of bread that has a filling inside of it, which is hot dog.
I am of the mindset that those two pieces of bread need to be separated.
Sometimes if your hot dog's really big, though, it separates by itself.
Yeah, man.
In that moment, it can be considered a
Then
sandwich,
what-
but a
but then-
conventional
but
hot
hamburger
dog.
sandwich is a sandwich.
Oh,
But
don't
what
call
about,
it a
like-
hamburger sandwich.
What about sub sandwiches? Right? It's the sort of long
she
bun
got you, bitch.
that's sliced.
Yeah,
that
you just
has-
slice it open. It's not in two pieces
But,
sometimes.
and then also has like sliced deli meat
You're
on it.
rocking my world, Nina.
This is what I'm
also
here for.
jelly donut's a sandwich. Anyway, corn is a grass.
What are you saying?
It's a bread that has a filling.
No,
Yeah.
it's not a bread. It's a lump that you injected jam into.
It's
A
also-
lump of bread.
It's also deep fried.
yeah.
Wait, are you saying that you can't fry bread?
But then corn dogs. What do you think about corn dogs?
Corn dog's a sandwich.
With cornbread on the outsides.
Yeah, it's a sandwich. It just happens to be on a stick.
Nina is like laughing hard at me.
Amazing. They're making a really amazing argument for
Dude,
it.
you gotta. I mean, like Twitter argues about this stuff all the time, but like, yeah, corn dog's a sandwich. And a jelly donut is a sandwich.
If you tell me that you are against pineapple on a pizza, I won't know what to do.
no,
with
I
it.
love pineapple
Yeah,
on pizza.
I'll put pineapple on
Okay,
pizza.
Jesus Christ. I'm like,
No, we haven't
Anyway,
found
so
our common
pineapple
ground.
is I knew the plant family of it, but I just forgot it for a second. Whatever.
No, it's fine if your head's swimming.
okay, so we've
oh
got
man. Okay, so we have I heard wheat, barley, rye, rice, corn, and there's a big one, and it's one of your favorites, I know for sure.
is it like I'm trying to is it just like cane sugar?
Yes,
It
it's
is?
cane sugar.
It
yeah.
is?
Shit,
Yeah.
so like basically almost everything we eat like on a regular basis is grass.
Yeah, it's basically
I feel so good about calling on cane sugar.
high
Yeah.
five. Yeah. Like
wow.
because I mean, like
I was
it's
actually
like all,
starting to think about it because I was like, what is it? Like, is bamboo also
Yeah,
a
bamboo.
grass?
Yeah, I
It
think
says it
so.
is.
Because
Yeah.
I just started thinking about
What they
plants
look
that
like.
have a like stalk,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
that got me to corn.
We're all still essentially grazing animals, the same way like the fucking cows are, but we're just not as like on the nose about it.
We're all cattle.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, what is that people say, like all flesh is as the grass? Like we are such amazing omnivores. We can eat everything, but we can't eat grass. And yeah, so sugarcane is definitely one of them. And if you think about it nutritionally, like all of the carbohydrates that we eat are either coming from the grasses or they're coming from those potatoes.
Yeah.
Another really cool grass is actually palm trees are not trees. They're
Oh, hell
gigantic
yeah,
fucking
dude.
grasses.
I'm just doing the hang loose, but you can't see it.
So if you like coconuts are Poaceae.
What about dates?
Date
tree.
That might. Oh man,
'Cause they seem really similar.
Though-
I mean, if they're not.
those like deserty kind of. They it starts to get a little complicated.
Oh, it's in the palm family, Araceae.
Oh, geez, it's in its own freaking family. There's so
in
many,
the plum family.
There's hundreds and hundreds. It's amazing.
Wild. But going back to like the grass family, it really is blowing my mind, like how vital it is to civilization.
And before you even expound more, it's probably a Gryffindor. But expound more.
Oh man,
Are you about to subvert my initial?
I don't think that I necessarily have like a particular like factoid about the grasses to make it to say that it's, definitely one or the other. But I think about like the harvest of these crops, particularly wheat, and it takes place in late fall. And it's this, huge, a lot of times celebration for folks. And it's very, very hardy, right?
So it's Hufflepuff.
I think Hufflepuff.
The most important food thing is a Hufflepuff.
I mean, yeah, it's like the staple. I definitely think about that.
Everybody wants to shit on Hufflepuffs, but without us, you would not exist or survive.
And especially like with regard to food, I think about Hufflepuff, like their common room, right, is like in the basement.
Yeah.
It's like basically your root cellar. It's next to the kitchen. Like y'all are all the gardeners. So
I will also say, like, on a personal note, like species like rice are self-pollinators. They don't have to like have like something else so that they basically like are Volcel, and I'm also Volcel. I'm voluntarily celibate, don't have sex, never will.
Yeah.
And so I feel personally connected to this plant family. I'm so happy to find out that they're Hufflepuffs.
Yeah, and I mean, like corn are pretty famously like wind pollinated, and yeah. So I mean, just in
very
terms of like
self-sufficient
food production, food storage, like this is all Hufflepuff realm that we're talking about. Shout out just for a quick second to Colleen Hotchkiss, who I know is going to listen to this, and she's the farm manager at Veggielution, where I worked for 2 years and got my roots in farming.
Hey, girl.
She's definitely the most Hufflepuff of us all. So
Wonderful.
Doing organic veggie farming.
Hello, and thank you for educating Nina further.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, what are we doing next?
We got peas.
Peas, Fabaceae. Oh man, so this is like all of our beans and peas and stuff. Fava being like one of the first ones, and where that
the
name
Hannibal Lecter, yes.
Fabaceae like comes from. I don't know about that.
Oh, he ate somebody's liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. Yeah, it's like
The signature line from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
That actually sounds delicious. Not like human liver, but liver's really good.
Yeah.
One of his like 10 minutes on screen that got him an Academy Award.
Yeah, the thing that you don't realize about Anthony Hopkins is he's not in the film that much, but he's pretty much all, like, you only remember him and Jodie Foster being scared.
Yeah.
Like, that's what Silence of the Lambs is.
It's kind of like also like the case with Beetlejuice, where Beetlejuice really until like the last half of that movie is like not that present.
No, like it's one of those things where like the person who is like the most centered and like is not the through line of it. It's usually somebody else's like personal
learning
experience.
About that person.
Yeah,
right,
and just how that
Great
how
Gatsby.
their encounter with this creature.
Jodie Foster, Alec Baldwin, those guys.
Yeah. Anyway, Fabaceae.
Yeah.
So this is like peas, and this is also like a really important family for cover cropping. So this is like when you so something that's super super cool about this family is that there's a symbiotic relationship with these nitrogen fixing bacteria, right? And so there's this these bacteria will take nitrogen N2 out of the air and then metabolize it into a nitrite and a nitrate that will then be able to be absorbed readily by the roots of plants.
What are the difference between a nitrite and nitrate?
Oh my gosh, this is putting me on the spot. This is like nitrite is NO2 and nitrate is NO3, I think, and they have different charge. They both minus charge
it's like
on them.
They have a different letter than each
have,
other.
Yeah, they have a different chemical formula.
That's all that matters to me.
Yeah, and they're absorbed differently by plants as well.
Okay.
But that's like the nitrogen like source for plants is that like, you could have decomposition take place and get your nitrogen by adding compost to your soil, or in nature we see this happen with decomposition of like dead plants and animals. I was just talking the other day about like salmon, and like bears would take salmon really, really far upstream. So the salmon are like, they grow up in like the ocean and then will swim upstream, sometimes many, many, many miles like into inland. Bears will then, or other, carnivores will take the salmon out, eat them, and they only eat like, the fanciest cuts of the salmon and leave the rest of it to just decompose. And then the scavengers will then take that salmon out and scatter it around in the forest, basically. And that is a way that the forests, especially, in the Pacific Northwest all the way up to like Alaska, will then get nitrogen so that the forest can actually grow.
Holy shit.
Like what? And then you think about like the effect of dams and all of that. So yeah, goes in deep. Nitrogen, really fucking important. Like when humans figured out how to fix nitrogen ourselves without plants, that's when we had a huge, huge boom in our food production. It's called the Haber-Bosch process. It happened like right around World War II-ish time. And then, this America being the breadbasket of the world, that was like us being able to do that. So our, population explosion after that was partially baby boomers, but also partially the fact that food was super available.
So that was right in the middle of World War II?
I think it was like right around there. It was like 40s, 50s kind of.
Gotcha. I was wondering if that was like part of the whole idea of like victory gardens and everything. Like if that was incorporated into that.
I think victory gardens is like, I don't want to starve.
I don't want to starve.
Well, sure. But I was thinking like if they were like, oh, and here's a method to like ensure.
No, this process was then happening like at the industrial level. It was an industrial application of nitrogen.
This isn't something that like the everyman who's just like, I want to start a garden like in my backyard.
Maybe if you went to like Home Depot or whatever and you got like your Miracle Grow and it's got a bunch of nitrogen stuff in it.
So there's a little more effort involved.
Yeah, it's a big chemical process.
That reminds me, and like, sorry to get political a little bit, I often am annoyed when people feel guilt over like, am I doing enough? And obviously you have to do stuff on an individual level for the environment, but I cannot overstate how much like our carbon footprint problem and like all of this stuff, it's all like on the industrial level and the systematic level that's actually having these catastrophic effects. It's not necessarily because your Aunt Doreen forgot to separate her cans and her bottles properly, but it's because these major corporations are deforesting and then polluting.
Yes.
And it's the same as that. Like, you can plant a victory garden, but it took the Bosch hogs,
Haber-Bosch process. Yeah.
Yeah, it took that to like have such a big impact. And that's something people need to think about. It's the micro effects, but the macro effects.
But to the same token, I wouldn't discourage anybody from like recycling if they can.
Literally what I said before I said what I was saying.
Yeah, like do what you can, but it's very like purposeful and to an extent insidious that the brunt of the conversation is happening at this sort of individual responsibility level when like we would all be more on board if there was more available to us in terms of what we could purchase and how our lives could be, right? Like more public transportation and everybody always says like solar's ready to go, y'all. So, I completely agree with you, right?
Or even like on the level of if there was more regulation and responsibility on the corporate level, you would be able to do more on an individual level. And I say that like from like a poverty level, it's harder to get foods that are well sourced and that are easier to recycle like in your area. It's harder to do if you're poor. So if we had better regulation and stuff like that, we would actually be better individual environmentalists.
Yeah. And there's on the flip side of like this whole nitrogen fixing that we were just talking about, like that contributed like, and the over application of fertilizers then contributed to this nutrient runoff that then caused these huge biochemical disturbances in our waterways, and it's called eutrophication, right? So you have too much, all of a sudden you have too much nitrogen, too much phosphorus in your streams that go down to lakes and stuff. You get these algal blooms, you have too much life that's happening in those lakes, and then they just deplete all the oxygen, all the fish die, so this was a problem that happened. But, going back to Fabaceae is the way that we have put nitrogen back into the soil for such a long time. So it's like quintessential. And when people are trying to minimize the amount of fertilizer application on their farms, what they'll do if they have, the ability to do so with the amount of like land that they're growing on and what their goal of the amount of money that they're trying to raise on their farm. If they can, cover crop, that's what they use. They use this combination of, peas and vetches and also some other grasses as well. But that's a huge part of being able to cover crop and add organic matter and add nutrients into the soil.
Now, what is the sort of, because we've talked a lot about like the nitrate and cover cropping associated with peas.
Mm-hmm.
What are the similarities like within that family that sort of like outside of that like in the way that they grow or their attributes?
They've got these really cute like tendrils that sort of curl around.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you'll see, they've got these really cute flowers, like lupins are in that family.
Lupins,
are
really?
Peanuts a legume?
Oh man, I don't remember if peanuts are Fabaceae or not. Yeah, peanuts are super weird. They like grow out and then they like bury themselves, and then the peanut actually grows in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is a pea.
They are from the plant family Leguminosae. Is that derivative?
Yeah, that might be a totally different family.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I just always remember. I just know peanuts are not a nut.
They're not a nut. Yeah, they're kind of funky. But anyway, yeah. So they vine. They've got this pod, cute little flower, right? That has different kinds of petals on them. They have these beautiful seeds, right? These really big, beautiful seeds in them. And yeah, they can have some cool leaf shapes too in them, like compoundly pinnate leaves. But
and you're getting all of it. Like you're getting some pretty major hitters nutritionally. Like because we're getting like alfalfa,
lentils,
clover, peas, beans,
soybeans,
chickpeas, the soybean, which is which just had like ridiculous ramifications, like the
clover, alfalfa, like feeds so much, feeds all of our cows. And clover is like another huge cover crop because it does the same thing.
Soy is something I actually have to like. I've been trying to avoid ingesting as I transition because it can actually stimulate estrogen. And so men should actually like watch their soy intake if they're actually feeling like they might have like a lower T count.
It basically like it like mimics estrogen in the body. And there was some research for a while that was kind of linking. They were looking at soy intake and breast cancer, and they're still like kind of out for the count with it.
Yeah.
But and so my degree was in nutrition, and kind of where science is at and what we know about food and nutrition in the body. It's like, don't eat too much of any one thing.
Yeah.
Mix it up, because we are omnivores in like the most basic sense. We can eat everything. So do that, eat everything, and eat a lot of plants. Plants got a lot of good stuff in it, including fiber that we really, we need. And
it's like what gives the animals that we eat their nutrition. So
so don't eat too much of any one thing. Eat plants, and fresh is great, because basically as soon as you harvest any of these plants, they start decomposing right away, and your nutrient content does go down.
And like a cooked thing is like is like we force decomposition in a way, right?
Yeah, and in some ways, cooking stuff can make nutrients more bioavailable, right?
Oh,
so like
cool.
if you steam your broccoli, you're actually going to get more, you're going to be able to get more out of your broccoli than if you were to eat it raw.
Steamed is better than raw for that particular food. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It tastes a lot better too, so that's good for me to know.
Yeah,
and and because you covered in cheese sauce, right?
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
Shut up. That's
Brussels sprouts and cheese sauce, with some spices in there, and then
I don't know what you're talking about with this cheese sauce. That's so surreal to me. Anyway,
but
are we feeling that this is a Ravenclaw? I think at least from the science level.
I would say that accountants are bean counters.
I would say that this conversation was a very Ravenclaw conversation.
Well, the whole conversation is going to be Ravenclaw, but just like, I guess it's coming at it from a human angle, which is making me lean Ravenclaw in the fact like both
utility in terms of utility.
The utility both as far as agriculturally speaking, but also soy as like a meat replacement.
And like also like a replacement for a lot of things. It's like such a like a versatile plant.
All of this is supplemental sort of protein within this particular
Chickpeas,
plant
lentils,
family.
Yeah.
So from that angle, at least if you're like, I'm a hunter-gatherer and I've not encountered any rabbits recently, but if you happened upon...
Oh, so I see, like having the knowledge, like, yeah, like on first glance, we're just talking about peas. But once you start to dive a little bit deeper into it, this is a really amazing, important...
right.
Yeah. Okay. So from a human perspective,
that's why I had to couch it
saying.
in that.
Yeah.
But
the plant by itself does not scream any particular house to me. But yeah, the way in which humans have interacted with this plant family for so long.
Right. Which I'd argue is even more extreme than some of the other ones, which are just like fairly straightforward of like, we're harvesting it for it. And then
the cucurbit, we're going to eat it. It's going to be yummy.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Whereas in this case, we're just really going to town on like the amount of things that can be done, and oh my goodness, like,
and just historically and everything. Yeah, we went a lot of places with Fabaceae. Thank you, peas.
Yeah, all right. Well, I buy that sorting.
All right, and finally, we're closing out with spinaches.
Spinaches. This is gonna be a quick one. These
everyone's favorite food.
These are really silly, kind of plant family. This is a silly kind of plant family to me for a couple of reasons. One is okay. So the plant family, I've heard different ways in which it's pronounced. One is Chenopodiaceae, and that is how I originally heard it. The other one is Chenopodes, and so whatever, hard C, soft C, I don't care. I'm gonna say Chenopodiaceae. Come for me. So these originally are found sort of in nature, growing in sort of brackish waters, so kind of close-ish to the beach, or where you have some salt content in the soil.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be spinach, chard, and beets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So beets are also in the same. And you look at beet greens, and they taste pretty similar too.
Beets, another major sugar staple.
Sugar beets. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also like historically in California with the farm worker fight, because that's, the harvesting of the sugar beets was a really big part of talking about farm worker conditions, and they were made to kind of bend over in this funny way so the supervisors could see that they were actually working. They couldn't bend their knees. It was just really horrid, like farming conditions.
Like, honestly, if people knew how they got their food, they wouldn't eat. We'd all starve ourselves to death if we actually reconciled how torturous it is to get the food that we eat.
It's really hard work, and it just comes to, for me personally, it comes back to gratitude, right? I'm just like, oh, thank you for this food, because otherwise I'd be starving right now.
I think a lot of that goes back to the concept of simply saying grace before meals, which is sort of a lost thing.
Mm-hmm.
At least at a lot, I actually, thinking back, I don't think any family dinner that I went to at a friend's house was necessarily saying grace. Shabbat would be a time when you'd be
yeah, Shabbat, definitely.
Shabbat dinner, we'd say thanks, or Thanksgiving, you say what you're thankful for, but and maybe this is just coming from dumb California kid over here, but maybe it's just a cultural locational thing. Did either of you grow up in a household that said grace?
Yeah, for sure. My grandparents, when at the times that I would live with my grandparents, you would say it before every meal.
Mm-hmm.
You were supposed to say it when you woke up. You're supposed to give a blessing, and when you're supposed to pray every night before you went to sleep. So you were on average, if you're being a good Christian, you're praying a minimum of 5 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how it is. And it didn't have to be a big to do. It usually took about a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that probably 5% of the time.
I guess I'm just an ungrateful person.
Yeah, probably.
Oh.
I mean, and it's just, it's not really something that I did. We didn't do it with my family, but it's not something that I did really until I started being really active in farming and gardening. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I would be at lunchtime, and I would have brought it's very typical Nina, like Veggielution lunch. I would bring a bagel with cream cheese on it, but then throughout the day as we would harvest in the morning, and then I would just go take, that crappy tomato that had a hole in it and, a couple leaves of basil or whatever and an onion. And then I would like build it out a little bit. And, thinking, I was then, thinking about, oh yeah, I remember several months ago when we, planted the tomato seed in the ground, in the greenhouse, and then we've cared for it so much for so long, and now here's this tomato, right? Like, so there's a whole story that goes along with every bit of food that we put into our bodies, and we totally forget
some
about
of
it.
that.
Absolutely.
Probably the allure of working on a kibbutz in Israel is like the ability to be really contributing to a community, but that also like lends itself into communism overall. But
which would be terrible.
I wasn't putting any like opinion on that.
Giant smiles in the room all around.
I feel like I'm trying to think if there's anything in my life where like I actually like make something happen. Like my hands are so uncallous, you guys. I have like little like dainty little lord fingers. Like I touch a computer all day.
Right.
I sit all day and I stare at a screen, and like I'll create things there, but even that's not like that's generated by the computer ultimately.
But first you eat. And yet that body is still eating, right? And so it comes back to it. Like we're not separated from it. And people are talking about now, there's a lot of ways in which we can improve the efficiency of how we grow our food. And you can have, hoop houses and aquaponics and hydroponics and they're, making this lab grown meat more and more cost effective as it goes on.
Can I ask you a controversial question potentially?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on GMOs? Genetically modified foods.
I think that I have a pretty unpopular opinion about this, just in terms of like the farming and gardening circles that I run in, because I'm not anti-GMO. Like it goes back to what we were talking about before, just in terms of, wow, we're gonna go there on this podcast.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. Let's cause some drama in the fucking botanical community.
Yeah, like when people say GMO, just kind of blanket, and they're like, are you for or against it? It's like, well, that's a technology, and is the technology inherently a bad thing? Like, no, it's super not. And there's a lot of really, really important stuff that's been done with genetic research over the past, like it really exploded like 30 or so years ago, and then in recent times with like the advent of there's a technology called CRISPR that's out that's like making a lot of
I've heard a lot about CRISPR.
It just takes the process that we all learned about in like high school and college, just in terms of you take a gene out using some enzymes, and then you figure out where it's going to go and make sense, and you put it in the genome of something else. It just like makes that process like super efficient and fast. And
what's the controversy there?
Well, it's just
like,
I think,
should it be done?
Should it be done at all? Like, should we be messing around?
That's like playing God stuff.
Well, I mean,
and choose. Yeah, it's playing God and saying like you can't.
It's making genetic modification like more accessible to more like scientists and more labs, and it's improving the like efficiency of that process. But like basically, like the whole argument about GMOs, in my opinion, or from what I can tell, is it comes from a logical fallacy that natural is better for you. And it's like, well, you know what? Rattlesnake venom is natural.
Yeah.
And so it's not like what even is natural? Like, how do you define that? Because
it's completely unregulated, by the way. If something's labeled as natural, like that does not necessarily mean it's better, like you said.
Everything that we've been talking about for the last 2 hours has been plants and human interactions. And as humans find plants and change them, like the fact that like the way that we farm is basically that, like turning over the soil in the way that we turn over the soil every single year in order to farm in the way that we farm, that happens in the natural world by itself. When glaciers scrape over landscapes and you have all of a sudden exposed all this soil, that happens once every that happened 10,000 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that
because I feel like in a very like even more dumbed down sense, the way that we have like cultivated certain foods to be more palatable is like kind of like in the same direction as GMO.
Same vein.
Because did you know, Michael, that we did not have a variety of corn that like tasted like super good to eat, like sweet corn. We didn't have it.
No, it's tiny and it's hard and it's like it tastes like powder.
We purposely designed sweet corn so that it could be something that people could eat, and that's a modified food. That's us like using evolution, like forcing it like to happen way quicker.
Yeah. So I think
when people are saying GMOs, they're talking about lab-based.
Right, exactly. And so I think there's a lot of fear around things that people don't understand.
Because there's so much going on. Like, would these people argue like a grafted tree is a GMO? And that's like, I'm assuming their argument would be like, no, because you've naturally just like done that. But in some sense, like, you're fucking with what like that is, or if you decide like I'm going to have these two like flowers cross pollinate and see like if it all like but that wouldn't be considered a GMO again,
right? And we see the exchange of genes from one species, and okay, so I think this is very fear driven, right? It's public fear. It's a fear of things that people don't have a complete understanding of. That's one of their primary arguments is like, oh, well, you don't completely understand what you're doing. So therefore you can't know all of the potential consequences of doing what you're doing.
But that's the risk. Like human risk is the only way we've like come forward as a species.
Yeah. And so I think that there's a fear surrounding, people not understanding how that process works. But this happens in nature by itself all the time. Like people got the idea of being able to take one gene from one species or organism and put it into the cells of another organism because that's what bacteria do literally every second of the day. They have these they have their genome and it's all, DNA, it's all mixed up and stuff. And then there's these little circles of DNA called plasmids, and they will exchange plasmids like irreverently all over the place from one species to another across families. Like this stuff happens, and it happens in plants as well. Like bacteria will go into plants and they'll give them genes. And that's one of the ideas behind how we end up with all of this different variety that we just talked about. We just talked about, so many different foods that we eat, right? All these different kinds of plants. And like, how did all of that variety even come to be? Like some of it is totally random, right? Oops, I forgot to put in this particular nucleotide in my DNA because there was a mistake that happened, and now I'm this cucumber split into two, and you have this double cucumber instead of one, or whatever. Like that kind of variation absolutely takes place, but also like there are all these other ways in which like these genes have been. I'm just going on and on and on.
No, human intervention. And like, okay. And so obviously
before human intervention with bacteria, like that has been happening. So when we say like, well, we came up with this technology, we didn't come out of our heads de novo, like Venus popping out of Zeus.
Inspired by it naturally occurring, right?
Yeah. It's something that like we saw happening in nature. And then we can be like, okay, we can refine this and we can really use it to our advantage. Mm-hmm. I just was talking with one of my coworkers and housemates has celiac disease. She can't eat gluten. That wheat is in fucking everything. It's so hard for her. And when she eats it, she's on her butt for like a week, 2 weeks. Like it's really bad. They're coming out with this it's going to be a GMO wheat that does not have gluten in it. They're trying really hard to try to isolate exactly what in it is so problematic for people who have celiac disease.
Yeah, and like not to get too preachy about it, but like it's just kind of mind-boggling that like people would want to slow down the development of technology that could make it so we could feed the entire planet when there are people on the planet who need to be fed.
Yeah, and I think that like all of this, these are all conversations that are happening in these same circles, and they're really legitimate concerns, right? And we are talking about feeding the world, but at the same time, there are a lot of reasons why people aren't getting fed that go back to what level are we talking about, right? Yeah. Are we talking about the individual level? We're talking about we're actually talking about food distribution.
If we're talking about it, we actually are already producing more than enough food.
We're producing so much food. And in a lot of ways, the way in which, sometimes the huge farms that we're talking about, there's a lot of problems there. And I think that everything that we do, we should be able to look at with a critical lens. And there's a lot of stuff that the small farmers who are saying, you know, all of these things about GMOs that we're somewhat are providing an argument against, like there's a lot that they're doing that's really, really important with regard to not having monocultures. And when you have a variety, when you have a bunch of different plant families represented on your farm and garden, then you're more resistant to, you know, pest invasion, right? You have, if you're being able to do cover cropping, you can add a lot of resiliency to your soil just in terms of adding that organic matter to it, and you have better tilth and all of that. So there's a multi-pronged approach to being able to solve the, like, well, the world is really hungry problem. It's like, yeah, the world is really hungry problem, and we also have a distribution problem, and we also have like,
God, this is also fascinating. I mean, I can go on forever, but we gotta wrap up at some point. Did we sort this last one?
No, we like started getting into
ACA, yeah.
We were like, it's around salt, and
then we launched into a completely different thing.
Dude, but I think it's important to talk about this stuff.
I agree.
But you know, honestly, like, hit us up anytime if you want to talk more about it. I'm always down. But to let's sort this last guy.
Beets, so spinach, chard. They're super colorful. They're full of lots of nutrients.
It's vitamin B's and all those
gosh,
guys.
Literally what Popeye would eat to give him muscles.
At that point in history, like, was the scientific community aware of how good spinach was for you? Or was that just like an absolute fluke that Popeye was like, that's going to be the thing?
I don't know. Spinach is a dark green leaf. Eat it.
I'd also love for there to be like a conspiracy that like the spinach ad execs were like, yo, whoever's making this cartoon.
Oh, you mean like the dairy industry?
Just like trying to promote.
Well, it is, and like there is a thing to it. And like the reason, you know, like a cartoon character is going to be promoting the eating is when you're a child, you actually have way more sensitive taste receptors than they kind of like dull as you get older, I'm told. So it actually is a lot easier for people who are older to enjoy spinach.
It's more palatable to them.
Like it's like, did you guys like it when you were children?
No, there's also something developmentally that happens to kids around like, I don't know, 8 to like 11 or 12, where all of a sudden those slimy foods are just like super revolting to them, and then it'll come back. Like they'll be able to eat it later. But I don't know what it is, but
I wasn't really exposed to spinach that much as a kid. It wasn't until I want to say around college that I was like, oh, spinach is a thing that I can eat. I like this.
Mm-hmm, I was a weird kid. I liked all of the vegetables. I even would eat spinach in its like most disgusting form, which is canned. Mm-hmm. Canned spinach is the slimiest, murkiest. It tastes like you're eating swamp.
Because they just can pack it down. Because spinach also is like a super light.
Know what I refuse to eat? Pancakes.
What?
I would eat every vegetable.
What do you have against pancakes? Do you still have something against pancakes?
They're not my favorite food. I think that people don't cook them right half the time, so they can be really dry.
Are you a waffle man?
I'll take a waffle over a pancake.
There you go.
But like, are you okay with waffles is what I'm saying.
I mean, I don't get stoked about them the same way I do like a traditional
What
cake.
is your desired breakfast food?
There we go. That is an open question.
Coffee.
Wow.
Beyond that, like what's your starch that you have?
I don't eat breakfast.
I know that, but if you had to.
If you put a gun against my head, I'm trying to eat a potato.
Oh, savory
like
breakfast is where it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to have some hash browns.
Country fried potato.
Yeah,
kind
any
of
sort
thing.
of potato. But like, the potato's it, man. I don't really want to eat anything in the morning. I don't usually eat until like 3 in the afternoon because I'm fucked up. I'm just fucked up.
All right, so how are we sorting spinaches?
Oh my god, fucking spinach.
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. So one last like cool thing about the spinaches is that
they've
got these funky seeds. Like I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the seeds of this family. They're like, they look kind of like jacks. Like, you know, the game Jacks, and they're kind of spiky all over the place. And inside, it's like a compound seed. I don't even know if that's the word for it, but it's basically like many seeds within like a bigger seed. And so and they look really, really wild.
In the center of the Jack, or like any of the axes where
Jacks might not quite be it, because it's maybe like a really fat Jack. You know, like it kind of puffed out, but it's got like these little like
like spines coming off of
kind
it.
of like spines, kind of like little protrusions.
But they're just like they're really
wonky.
like distinct from like other seeds.
Koosh ball sort of things. Yeah, they're super wonky. And then so you plant one of them and multiple sprouts are going to come up because there's actually many seeds within that seed like capsule. It's like a capsule.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get more than you bargained
It's like
for.
a fruit. That's like a fruit or like a maybe it's a nutlet. Yeah. See, botanical terms, man, they go all the way down. So that's kind of cool. They kind of travel in packs.
Okay. Okay. So they are very much about like group oriented.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I get Hufflepuff or Gryffindor for this for me.
Yeah.
Until you said the nutlet fact. I was,
Honestly, they're not the sexiest of the foods. Like I don't think anyone's gonna say like you're gonna be hard pressed to find someone who says beets or spinach are their favorite food.
Beets can be so colorful and cool.
And beets are the thing that I initially was thinking of, like
so
going Hufflepuff.
Yeah, because they're so ground.
Yeah, no. You like them,
They're
but are they your favorite food?
And they have an
Are they anywhere near? Are they even in your
earthy
top 10
flavor.
foods?
I'm going to go so far to say if I can get a beet salad, like a golden beet salad,
butter lettuce and some cheese, some like goat cheese or something, and then
beets are in
some
your
like
top
candied
10
walnuts
foods.
and some
not like
avocados.
top 10 of all time
Okay,
food.
that's what I'm telling you. They're not sexy, so they're a Hufflepuff. They're not a Gryffindor.
I wasn't arguing for Gryffindor.
I'm just saying nobody's favorite food is beets. Nobody's favorite food is beets or spinach. I'm sorry.
If your favorite food is beets, please let us know. Where can you be reached on the internet?
You can find me on my personal Instagram. That's fine at Fenestra Vitae.
How do you spell that?
FENESTRAVITAE.
There we are.
Repeat that back as many times as you need to.
You can follow Reed at That Dang Dingus. You can follow me at Belated Media, Nina Vuoso. I'd like to thank you once again.
Hell yeah, you got me so hyped on plants. That's wild.
Yo, plants. They're really awesome. Eat them.
Yeah, this has been great, dudes. Please, if you thought it was great as much as I do, can you please just give us a review on iTunes or Apple Play? Is that where we are?
Yeah. We're there. Google Play,
Apple Play.
Apple Podcasts.
Apple Play.
Leaving us a review would be wildly helpful. As helpful as eating your veggies, kids.
It doesn't take that long. It's not that hard.
And we will join you again for another episode of The Sorting Hat.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.